Welcome to the Deep Dive. You've sent us your sources, and our mission, like always, is to pull out the key insights, the interesting bits.
Exactly.
Today, we're plunging into a really fascinating collection, YouTube transcripts from college orography investigations.
And what's really intriguing here is the sheer range. We're looking at sessions in Italian, Spanish, Romanian, English,
Yeah, quite a mix.
spanning several investigative cycles, too. We've got cycle 78 right up to 471.
And across all of that, this recurring theme emerges, doesn't it?
It really does. The exploration of the Ark of the Covenant, specifically through individual hypnotic regression, it just keeps popping up.
It's kind of amazing, really, how persistent that mystery is across different people, different languages.
Absolutely.
So what we're aiming for today is to, see if we can spot any common threads running through these very personal hypnotic experiences.
And also highlight some of the really unique sort of standout stories and perspectives that came up.
Exactly. Okay, let's get into it. Where should we start? Maybe the methodology.
Yeah, that makes sense. The Italian transcripts actually give us some good background on the approach here. The Grafasi method, it involves multiple sessions, different operators.
Right.
And the whole point is to try and filter out, individual suggestion or maybe leading questions. They're looking for information that shows up consistently across these independent sessions.
Right, and they really stress the challenge of contamination, don't they?
Hugely. They state pretty clearly that only a tiny fraction, maybe 2–3%, is considered potentially reliable because of that risk.
2 to 3%. Wow.
Yeah, it's low. And it highlights why they emphasize needing a huge number of sessions, thousands, potentially to really identify those consistent details.
That really underscores the rigor they're aiming for.
Yeah.
It's quite different from how you might use hypnosis therapeutically for a client, right?
Oh, completely different. In therapy, the information coming up is valuable for understanding the client's inner world, their issues. Whether it's factually accurate in the sort of external world isn't always the main point. And these transcripts also touch on the difficulty of investigating specific external things through hypnosis without, accidentally influencing the subject.
Or maybe running into information that's deliberately blocked.
Yeah.
Or even manipulated.
Exactly. That possibility is acknowledged. And there's also mention of the operator's intuition playing a part in analyzing the info. It's not purely quantitative.
So it's not just ticking boxes of repeated details.
No, there's an interpretive element. They use this analogy comparing reliable info from many sessions to trusted news sources versus maybe just isolated blogs. It helps understand why they need that corroboration.
Okay, that makes sense. So with that context,
Yeah.
what about these common elements? You mentioned recurring descriptions of non-human beings.
Yes, that's a definite pattern.
Yeah.
Particularly in the Italian language sessions, we see quite consistent descriptions of entities they call greys.
Okay, the grays. Let's unpack
Yeah.
that. What are people describing across different sessions?
Well, the descriptions are surprisingly similar. They talk about varying heights, but unusual body proportions, grayish-green skin.
Very distinctive, large, almond-shaped black eyes, no visible pupils.
Yeah.
And minimal facial features, like the mouth, nose, ears, are just small fissures or openings.
Right. I've heard descriptions like that before.
And consistently, no genitalia mentioned, longer limbs compared to humans, and usually fewer than 5 fingers.
That is a remarkably detailed and consistent picture, especially coming from different individuals under hypnosis.
It is, and alongside the grays, the Italian transcripts also repeatedly mention reptilian beings. Similarities drawn to, earth reptiles and vertebrates, even insects sometimes.
Reptilians, too.
And mantis-like beings also come up in those Italian sessions, often mentioned together with the grays and reptilians.
And beyond the beings themselves. Any other recurring themes?
Yes, a couple of interesting ones. Repeated mentions of non-physical, sort of etheric underground locations.
Underground. Where?
Specifically noted as being beneath large cities, places with concentrated power or energy. That comes up in the Italian sources.
And another detail from the Italian sessions. Consistent reports of specific types and shapes of implants found in certain body parts across different people.
Implants too. Okay. Now, does this change much with the other languages?
It diversifies, certainly. If we look at the Spanish session with Monica, she perceives different beings as custodians of the Ark. She calls them elephants or beings with trunks.
Elephants.
Identified by energy, she says. One specifically felt like masculine energy.
That's different. And the English session with Claudia.
Her initial perception was of tall beings with wings or sometimes pillars linked to the ark, acting as guardians.
Winged beings.
Yeah, but later in her session, that perception shifted. She identified them more specifically as reptiloids, but with a sort of humanoid figure behind them. It shows how perception can evolve during a session.
That's fascinating. So initial image versus later clarification.
Exactly. And just one more from Monica's Spanish session. She also described a neutral species, very unique description, an 8-sided atomic level structure.
8-side.
It's connected by yellow tubes transmitting information, so you really get a sense of the variety of entities encountered.
Definitely. So we have these recurring types like grays and reptilians, but also these really individual, maybe culturally influenced descriptions like elephants or winged beings. Okay, let's pivot now to the arc itself, the individual stories and perceptions. Where should we start? Monica, again?
Monica's Spanish session is packed with interesting details. She talks about feeling information in the ether being actively erased as she tries to access it.
Erased? By who?
She attributes it to energetic protection from Earth itself and from beings she calls the owners of the artifacts.
Wow. Okay.
She also perceives this huge warehouse filled with beings in hypnosis or remote viewing, working on different projects.
What kind of projects?
Things like astral energetic warfare, she says, and even surveillance of individuals,
Right.
specifically mentioning the CIA.
Goodness, that's quite a claim.
It is. And she goes further, describing world leaders using coded words and speeches to activate or deactivate these global projects.
Coded words in speeches.
Yeah.
Like spy stuff.
Pretty much. And then there's this physical book she mentions containing binary codes used for communication within the U.S., linked to specific times, songs, videos, products,
Right.
and apparently used by people with military training. It really does sound like something from a thriller novel.
It absolutely does.
Well,
What about her perception of the arc itself?
very interesting. Not the grand chest of legend. She sees it as a simple container holding something incredibly special that's actually not on Earth anymore.
Not on Earth. So what was in it?
A fundamental power source, or a nucleus, she describes it as, and she senses this mirror protection around it.
A mirror.
Yeah, reflecting the observer's own thoughts back at them, preventing access to the real truth. A kind of mental defense mechanism.
That's clever.
Yeah.
And did she experience anything trying to get closer?
Yes, quite intensely. She reported feeling her physical body boiling when approaching it energetically.
Boiling. Seriously.
That's her description, which led her to use an energetic clone of herself to observe more safely.
An energetic clone. Fascinating.
Indeed. Her session also mentions the original contents being moved by those elephant-like beings we talked about.
Ah, the elephant beings again.
And she even communicates with one, a masculine energy being with a trunk. It identifies its origin as Arto R2, mentions needing a dimensional jump, and says its mission is collecting and expanding knowledge. This being apparently confirmed, the ark was meant to contain a spark, not replicate it, stressing the universal spark can't be replicated.
Contain, not replicate. That's a key distinction.
Definitely. She also perceived ancestral maps guarded by these same beings within Earth's layers. Access depends on your sort of relational level and intention.
Layers within the Earth.
Okay.
So much in one session.
One last bit from Monica. An encounter with a being from Aruba on a ship near Earth. It apparently came to help humanity but got interfered with for 250 years because it arrived with preconceived expectations.
Interfered with. Wow. Okay, let's shift gears. Federica's experience in Italian, what did she perceive?
Federica's initial vision of the ark was quite different. She saw an intangible vehicle, seemed submersible but lacked physical density, surrounded by concerned scientists, she felt.
A vehicle, not a box.
Yes, and she felt the ark wasn't the mythical image, but somehow related to this vehicle. She also sensed codes within it.
Codes, again, like Monica's binary codes?
Different, it seems, related to genome's human, but also subtle universal structures. And she perceived a distortion around the tables of the law.
Distortion? How so?
She felt they weren't just moral laws, but the fundamental physical and metaphysical laws of the universe, and that this understanding had been twisted or obscured.
Misinterpretation theme. Interesting.
And what's really compelling is her vision of similar codes originating from an advanced, ancient, human-like civilization, post-catastrophe, something worse than atomic, she felt.
A lie civilization.
Apparently. And these codes were created to transmit info about their genome more expanded than ours, she sensed, plus plants, interconnectedness, vital knowledge.
And how is this knowledge preserved?
Protected by water, she sensed, but in a non-physical form, like a backup system.
Non-physical water.
Yeah, accessible for reassimilation, potentially awakening memories and abilities in current humans. A reservoir of potential.
But has anyone accessed it?
Intriguingly, she felt that in the past, those who could access it didn't need it because they'd already awakened their consciousness internally.
Ah, okay. So it's there, but maybe obsolete for the already enlightened.
Kind of. But she also saw a future where accessing it is possible, but hindered by power struggles and distractions. Her point was that inner work is the real key.
Inner work, right. Not just finding the external object.
Exactly. And she felt a strong, energetic bubble or current around the information, making it hard to observe without being influenced.
That difficulty of non-influence keeps coming up. Okay. How about Marzana, also Italian?
Marzana's session starts with a vision of a bright star or comet illuminating the U.S., which she felt was partly true and connected to a star on the U.S. flag.
Symbolic.
Then she identifies the Ark as a non-human transport, a spaceship made of non-terrestrial metal.
A spaceship again.
Yeah.
Like Federica's vehicle idea, sort of.
Inside, she sensed the tables of universal law, but as frequencies, not physical objects. Each piece of information having its own frequency.
Frequencies.
And the guardians. She perceived them as invisible thought forms, not sacred, created for a purpose, but lacking vital energy.
Thought form guardians,
Yeah.
different from winged beings or elephants.
Yes, and she felt opening the Ark was conditional, needed authorization and the right moment. Unauthorized opening. She visualized a powerful force destroying the opener.
Destroying them.
An energetic and mental imbalance, she described it.
Wow.
Triggered by an explosion of conflicting emotions on touching it unprepared. A kind of self-destruction mechanism.
That sounds intense.
Yeah.
Did you mention Project Sunstreak?
She did. She felt it was a U.S. strategy to attract attention and cover up the Ark's reality, making other countries seem less significant.
A deliberate distraction.
That was her perception. She also mentioned the remote viewer's DNA needing decoding and the project being cyclical. Her final thought was that the Ark is known universally, and our limited image of it actually helps create deception.
Our imagination used against us, in a way.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Let's move to Anastasia in Romanian.
Anastasia's take is really unique. She saw the Ark initially as a construct technology and energy mixed, both huge and tiny, like an implant or chip.
An implant where?
Connected to the mental body and physical brain, she perceived it in the center of the brain, rotating like clock hands.
Rotating in the brain. What does it do?
Functions as a biological program, she believed, limiting conscious awareness and will. She used an analogy of limited daylight hours for the mind, linking it to multiple personalities.
Wow, that's a completely different framework. The Ark as a limitation device.
That was her perception. She attributed its creation to hierarchs and linked it to populations near stone circles.
And its power.
She saw it largely as a belief or placebo effect. Your belief in its danger could cause self-destruction.
So the power comes from the observer's mind.
In her view, yes. Interestingly, she sensed two physical locations. One underground in Europe, beneath a large building, another in a mountainous, open-air cave environment.
Two locations.
And she had a sense the Ark was discovered by the remote viewer while under the influence of LSD or similar substances, questioning the accuracy of their metaphysical takes.
Ah, adding another layer of potential distortion. Okay, Catalina, also Romanian.
Catalina offered another twist on the protection mechanism. Not physical destruction, but affecting brainwaves with a different frequency.
Affecting brainwaves. To what end?
To cause a loss of interest in opening it you just not want to anymore.
That's subtle. Like a psychic deterrent?
Exactly. She sensed a well-guarded sphere of information protected by a veil impacting human fables and myths about the Ark. She saw this collective mythology as an egregor.
An egregor. Collective thought form.
Yes, created by humanity searching for the spirit's essence. Echoes of Marzana there.
Right, and Project Sunstreak.
Catalina perceived its command panel as evaluating the right moment for partial disclosure, based on what consciousness can handle.
Partial disclosure. Controlled release.
And she sensed this command panel existed partly on Earth, partly outside it, like a dimensional overlap.
The double reality.
Yeah.
Okay, finally, Claudia in English. What was her experience?
Claudia started with a vision of powerful yellow light, then a dark curtain moving across it, and later a feeling of vibration and technology.
Yellow light connected to the Ark.
Yes, she linked the Ark to that light, perceiving it vibrating but energetically buried in shadow. She also saw an old man with red, fire-like light in his hands, Later, just a silhouette associated with a pyramid-shaped light where tables of the Lord were being formed, not yet made from Earth material. This energy had many DNAs, no physical body.
Tables being formed from energy with multiple DNAs.
That's how she perceived it. These tables were a coded metaphysical and energetic mix, responding to commands and moments relevant specifically to Earth.
And did she see guardians?
Yes, the tall beings with wings, but she felt they were Earth-rooted, pretending to be masters of the larger light structure, sending lower frequencies.
Pretending. Who were they really?
Reptiloids, she identified them, with humanoid figures behind them. Felt cold. Their tech linked to the light source as stolen DNA of energy.
Stolen energy DNA, okay. Did she sense a location?
She perceived a fake arc underground in desert like California, also vibrating but differently dry, diminished frequency.
A fake arc. Why?
Connected to the yellow light, but with poor frequency, negatively influencing humanity, reducing our frequencies. Contradictory to the light's purpose, guarded by tech constructs and the same winged reptiloids.
So a decoy designed to lower vibrations.
That was her sense. And a red flame inside this fake arc related to the matrix functioning, empowering negative traits and attachments.
And the real tables, where did their energy go?
Left Earth, she felt, into the yellow light container, but part was copied to the fake arc, not split.
Copied, not split. How did the reptiloids get the info to copy?
Through the planet's duality, she sensed. By keeping one part of the duality on Earth, they could access and copy the information.
Using Earth's duality against itself. Clever, in a way. When is the right moment to open the real arc, then?
Linked to an energy and egregore or collective consciousness achieving a harmonious balance of frequencies, surpassing duality.
Transcending duality. Has anyone managed that?
She felt some on Earth have partially accessed these codes to surpass duality, both positive and negative-oriented people, limited by their own frequencies.
Interesting. Both sides reaching for it.
And she envisioned humanity potentially abandoning duality entirely, living by these principles, experiencing a field of oneness through shared vibration.
A collective shift.
Ultimately, her message stressed focusing on inner good, detached evolution, healing insecurities. That's what's most important for the individual.
Right. That inner work theme again.
So as we wrap this up, it really is striking, isn't it? We see these common threads, descriptions of greys, reptilians, the arc, as more than just a box.
Absolutely. It's fascinating how it's seen as this energetic container or a source of codes, frequencies, even that idea of an implant. It's multifaceted.
And yet, the individual stories are so rich and distinct. Monica's energetic battles, Federica's cosmic archive, Anastasia's brain implant concept. Each one offers this incredibly personal, unique lens.
Yeah, these subjective glimpses are just captivating. But we also have to remember that methodological context, right? The contamination issue.
Crucial point. The acknowledged challenge of contamination means we have to be careful. The need for consistency across many independent reports is key when looking for potential patterns.
So here's the final thought, maybe. Given that potential for contamination, what does it actually suggest when we do find certain details, like the gray descriptions recurring across different people, languages, times? What might that consistency, even if limited, tell us about consciousness or reality, or maybe our connection to things beyond the everyday?
It definitely invites you to ponder, doesn't it? What underlies those shared perceptions?
It really does. Well, this has been a truly fascinating deep dive, exploring these complex and intriguing accounts based on the sources you shared.
Absolutely. We hope it gives you plenty to reflect on and perhaps explore further on your own.